Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 3, Episode 13 of The Equalizer. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I literally brought this up, maybe the last episode or episode before last. I figured it was going to come up at some point in time, but we had the return of Colton Fisk. I think because that's such a major plot point that I was like, yeah, I'm surprised we hadn't circled back to anything with it at this point in time. So maybe later stuff in this season might touch on it even more, but maybe this will be the last episode we get on this subject for now. Who knows what the future will necessarily hold. It is kind of weird seeing Donald Logue with like really short hair like that. Because I'm trying to think, like, in all the stuff I've ever seen him in, he's always had, like, the medium length, like, kind of longish hair he's always had, like, he did last time we saw him earlier this season. So it's just kind of interesting, because I'm thinking, like, I don't think he ever had short hair as Bullock in Gotham, but whatever. So that's why I was kind of like, oh, I've never seen him with the short hair like that, at least not that I remember. But either way. Kind of an interesting start to the episode where this guy's like, oh, can I meet someone? It's like, oh, you don't have an appointment. He's like, don't worry, I'll announce myself or whatever. And the home dude started killing everyone in the office. I thought he was just going to take the place hostage or something. Did not expect him to just start dropping every single body in that office. And the only person that got out was a guy named Devon. And he ended up going to Robin about the situation, but by the time her and Mel showed up, the place had been cleaned. And especially with this element, like introduction in this episode, I was like, was this like a CIA operated thing? Which turns out in the grand scheme of everything, it is CIA related. But Fisk, being who he is, isn't so quick to divulge information. I get it. It's the CIA. It's a need-to-know basis type of situation, and Rob doesn't need to know because, yeah, you're working with each other, but they don't fully trust each other because even Robin was like, yo, Bishop made his own decision. Like, yes, I have some guilt over, but at the end of the day, Bishop did what he did because, he wanted to. You can never convince Bishop to do something he didn't want to do. So I'm tired of you, like, holding that above my head, so it's not going to work anymore. Like, you're trying to leverage that against me. And even Fisk was like, yeah, you know what? I see your point. I get it. Because he knows the validity to it, the truth to it. Because it's like, right, that's legitimately the only thing you got holding over me, that you're lording over me, is my own guilt about the situation with I mean, to be fair, it's like, if they had never made the deal with Home Dude in the first place, then Robin wouldn't have to worry about him still being out there and wouldn't have had to go to Bishop to try and, like, remedy that situation that the CIA caused in the first place, So I guess maybe in some way you can almost look at it as kind of like a catch-22 that at the end of the day, the CIA handling things the way it has always handled things in the past kind of led the Bishop situation to play out the way it did. I mean, yes, Rob had her part to play, but it was, the CIA, once again, had handled things differently in the past. It wouldn't have led to all of that. But either way, they're after this guy who is the killer, who is actually trying to still find Devon, and they're trying to figure out why, because this is like a marine biology, company, like they work with like nonprofits and stuff like that. So it's like, it's not like, oh, there's another, that this is like some potential company coming out. Like there's nothing that says like what this could be about. Well, we find out Ruiz is, I always butcher this country's name, Nicaragua. Might be the first time I've ever said it correctly in forever. He's from like a very special force of the army there. And it turns out he's part of this CIA program known as Nomad. Basically, the CIA would have a Nomad hire mercenaries from country A to attack country B, but make them think country A authorized the attack. So now it's like, yeah, and you basically end up like two countries going to war, and the CIA, using that situation to kind of, benefit themselves. It's like, yeah, I mean, this show does not shy away from like, yeah, the CIA's done some shady stuff. It's like, we're not like, it like the large scale world scale game that the CIA kind of plays, pitting countries against each other for their own benefits. It's like, yeah, the show doesn't like hold any punches. I'm like, yeah, the CIA, that's why Rob doesn't like the CIA, because of the way they handle things. It's just like they see things as like pieces on a board, people as pieces on a board. So But yeah, it turns out the Nomad program was shut down by Fisk, but it seems like someone might have revitalized it. That's where Carlos Ruiz comes into place. But also, I love that the episode does make you go, who knows if you can fully trust Fisk, because, like, hey, he was alone with Carlos and ended up killing him. He's like, yeah, I wanted information. Do you think I wanted him dead? It's like, I don't know. I mean, you could have easily probably gotten rid of, Robin heard the shots and she was nearby, so she was going to, like, show up. But it's like, I don't know if you had enough time, you would have had enough time to, like, tamper with the body to get rid of any potential evidence that would have been on the body. Because obviously his passport was still there, and obviously it was a forgery. That Rob's like, yeah, the people who do stuff like that it's the CIA who does forgeries this good. So I also love Rob doing her thing of, like, obviously Fisk was like, I will meet with the director, find out, what's what, and I'll pass the info to you. But she ambushed him, and it's like, oh yeah, right, I'm gonna make sure I'm here for these conversations. And I think this kind of made it kind of clear what kind of time the CIA was on, where it's like, hey, we need to shut down this Nomad thing, because if it gets found out, the blowback on the CIA. And then Robin had to be like, and the innocent lives that would be lost. And Director Platt's kind of like, yeah, he's kind of nonchalantly nodding along, like, yeah, that too. Who get, first and foremost, protecting the agency is what comes first and foremost, especially at the high-ranking positions that they are. So it's your job to literally look after the agency first and foremost. But then, like, finding out the large scale, like, yes, how this whole Nomad situation is playing out, how Nicaragua plays into all of this. It turns out, because they ended up running into a guy, Tate, who used to be part of, he in fact founded, we later on found out, co-founded the Nomad program, but he got shut down because Fisk said that he found out that they were utilized, like, yes, this program was initiated to cause wars and stuff, but, like, to destabilize countries, they were too quick to go to the whole, like, assassinating people type of thing. Like, they went to the bloodshed angle too quickly rather than kind of being patient and maybe, like, finding other ways. It's like, nah, the fastest way, they just wanted results quicker and quicker. And it's like, that's why he had the program shut down. And in turn, Tate ended up getting, like, booted from the CIA, because I think his part to play in all of that, because he was probably the one dishing out the orders to kind of do all of that. But it turns out he has nothing to do with this. But the fact is, we got introduced to his military group, like, in his little kind of, like, because Rob's like, yo, whenever his group gets called in, there's a lot of bloodshed. So I could definitely see that storyline element with Tate potentially coming back up again at some point in time. In what capacity, I don't know, but I could definitely see Robin and him crossing paths. Now, whether it's going to be something directly connected to Fisk and they end up crossing paths, or whether it's another, like, client situation that leads her to crossing paths with him, we'll have to wait and see. But that feels like that's a storyline element that's primed to be, like, brought back up at some point in time. But yeah, it turns out this is all about lithium batteries, because there's, like, a mine because I guess Nicaragua has, like, a lot of, like, mines associated with it. And it's like, right, lithium could be, you gain a lot of money and power. And that's what this is all about. Because apparently they have beef with Honduras, because there was a Nomad situation of, like, yo, let's get, it seemed like Nicaragua was responsible for, like, burning a village in Honduras, but that was the Nomad situation. But Honduras doesn't have the military might, but the U.S. does, because the U.S. condemned it, set up sanctions, and one of the people involved in all of this is, like, a General Stone, which we never got the full context of what this was all about, in the sense of, like, Devon's company. Basically, so, like, everyone else was researching stuff related to North America, except for one person who was researching South America stuff, and that's how this all popped off, because they had researched power, stone, Nicaragua, power, and stone. So I don't know whether they had gotten a tip about something, about what was going on down there, and that maybe this would affect, like, their marine biology stuff, or, Could we? Yeah, because that was something. Because even later on, Devon's like, why did this happen? And even Rob's like, I don't know. Go. I guess we'll never find out why that specific person was like researching that. We just know that they were, and that's what led to like, oh, we got to kill these people because we don't want like potentially what we're up to. We can't let there be a trail of what we're potentially up to. But anyway, the plan was to have a Nicaraguan person like assassinate General Stone so that it would force the U.S. to invade Nicaragua. So it all work out in the end. So they'd have an excuse to go get the lithium batteries and stuff like that. And now you're like, wait, you can't get in contact with Fisk the moment Mel and Rob are trying to look after General Stone. And it's like, oh my God, this whole thing's just a setup because it turns out he was a co-founder of Nomad. So it's like, right, he was playing me the entire time, only giving me information when I pushed and prodded. But now it's like, I'm backed into a corner, don't have any backup. He shows up. What the freaking flamethrower, didn't see that coming. So it's like, oh, then he immediately bails afterwards. And it turns out, right. Once again, just like last time with Rob, he's trying to find some bad apples amongst all of this. It turns out Director Platt is the one that was responding. I guess his nonchalant response and stuff like that, I guess was a key sign of like, yeah, like, he was trying to play the front of like, oh yeah, we got to shut down this Nomad stuff, but he was a part of this. So, ultimately, Fisk was able to kind of use this. It puts him in a position where he has leverage because the CIA is never going to, like, yes, he's going to be, like, not really punished. He's going to keep his position because he's the director of the CIA. But at the end of the day, like, you know, I have this leverage on him, so he'll stay in line, and I'll also be able to use this to my advantage in the future. But it's like, yeah, everyone's kind of been... It was a situation that was unresolved because it's like, right, so Platt gets to just get away with everything that he did. And it's just kind of like, this is how things roll. And once again, Fisk was doing all this to expose him. And it's like, right, I took your call in front of him. He sent people after me. I took care of him. I was like, do you think I just carry around a flamethrower? And she's like, no, I actually don't know enough about you whether or not to like know whether that's something you're fully capable of. It's like, yeah, I guess like the flamethrower came from the people coming after him, or I guess it's a byproduct of he knew they were coming after him. So it's like, I waited for him, flamethrower in hand, and I burned him. Like, I get, maybe that's kind of the implication of what he's implying. But Robin basically leaked the story because she's not adherent to the CIA. She's her own person, and obviously I figured as much the way Fisk called her and he was so calm and collected. I was like, oh, you're benefiting from this. Because at first I was like, are you going to become the next director of the CIA? But it's like, no, his friend who was Assistant Green, she does, who also owes him a lot of favor. They made sure to include that when they ran into each other earlier in the episode. So it's like, right, carrying a lot of favor with the next director. So it all benefits you in the end. So, and I love that he's like, oh, you know what your problem is, Mall Cop? You think too much, which I should also talk about. I do love that that's still a carryover, that he doesn't call her by her name. I mean, I think he calls her McCall a few times, but he mainly calls her Mall Cop, and I don't know why I like that. I don't know, I like that as a nickname. I mean, granted, it was a nickname, came about him putting your life at risk when he was trying to expose some very bad people in the CIA, but still. Just a continued example of just how Fisk goes about using people to expose other people. So it's like, yeah, probably something Robin's going to think about in the future, because it's like, oh, if I cross paths with you, who are you trying to expose now? Because both operations I've been around you for, you've been trying to expose people for who they were and trying to... I wonder, did he kind of count on Robin doing that? Because or at least he knew it was a possibility. He knows who Robin is. He knows her moral code being what it is. It's like, there's no way she's just going to let this go by. So it's like, right, this way I also don't have to take any responsibility for taking Platt down. Someone outside of the agency will, because she'll know how to cover her trails enough, but also she has distance from the agency so that she won't, like, if I were to do it, I'd suffer backlash. And once again, he's the director. Me taking him down, that'd look bad upon me. And even if Green took the position, I'd still probably have like a stain on my reputation because I helped take down the previous director. But it's like, yeah, she's not part of the agency, so he probably bet on like, right, she'll do the right thing, and I will benefit from it. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. Like I said, like when's the next time is it going to be another couple episodes? Will it be near the end of the season that we deal with more of the Colt and Fist stuff, or will we get it a little sooner? I'm curious to see. So all the while that's happening, we have the other side of the episode with Dante, which Dante's got a lot on his plate. First and foremost, his dad's getting out the next day, and it's like, right, I've got a lot to think about, because him and Manny, talked about their dads. Their dads are the same generation. They weren't the best fathers, and how that kind of led to, the effect that had on them. I mean, even Dante telling that story of like, so a kid stealing his bike. So what did his dad suggest him do? It's like, oh, go fight that kid. Oh, you lost to that kid? Not only did you get beat up by him, but I'm going to beat you up for losing too. It's like, yeah. Not the greatest when it comes to the parenting situation, but it's like, right, you're from a different generation. How you were raised kind of led to how you raised your children. So it is kind of this really sad cycle we see, because Dante seems he broke the cycle. It's sadly Manny didn't, because Manny has a complicated relationship with his son, because it's like, right, he was there. It's like Sean's issue is, right, dad was too busy at the gym, like running that damn gym. He wasn't there for me and my mom who was struggling. I think Manny had his own issues at the time, but for him, it's like, yeah, I pushed my son away. It's like my dad, it wasn't until my dad was like about to die that he kind of talked about all the stuff that he went through and how he didn't have any outlet for it. And so he ended up pushing a lot of that onto me. And sadly for Manny, he ended up repeating the cycle with his own son. But he also points out for Dante, it's like, we both had the same upbringing, but look at you. You didn't pass on what your dad did to you. You are... What I did to my son is a byproduct of what my dad did to me. Like, I did that because of my dad. You raise your children in a way despite your dad, So I think that's such a, interesting thing. Especially because for Manny, it's like, right, life got put in perspective of like, right, a reminder of how short life is because he's in the hospital. We'll get to that in a second. And he talked about like, right, he was never able to bury the hatchet with his father. And it's just, right, like, because life is so short, he ended up having, like, I think it helped a little bit understanding his father, and because Dante didn't understand what made his dad the way he did. I mean, because even before now, we've gotten stories about, or at least a better understanding of his father because of the episode, what was it, 13, the whole, cops trying to kill him situation. What was it, the episode DWB? I want to say that was like episode 13 last season. That episode, gave us flashes of like his dynamic with his mom, but also his dynamic with his dad, about how his relationship with them and how his father handled things, and, once again, who he became because of his dad, but also in spite of his dad, why he's got the strong moral code that he does, because he wants to be nothing like his father. But it is a thing of like, right, understanding his father, and also, right, there isn't a lot of time. Yes, I am making sure that my father has a relationship with his grandchildren, but I'm also the one that gets to dictate that. If I see anything wrong, like, I shut it down immediately. But it's like, Manny was like, yo, but what about you and your dad's relationship? It's like, there is no relationship. That ship has sailed. But now it's like, with the whole thing with Manny, it kind of got him thinking. It's like, right, you still have your dad, and take time to, you let go of a lot of the anger that he kind of just like pushed on you and that you still have towards him. Like, because you don't want to have to be carrying that for the rest of your life because so much stuff left unsaid and done. It's like, talk to him, because we see the little conversations they had here and there. He's about to be a free man, so it gives you a lot more opportunity. So at the end of the episode, we see Dante picking up his dad, and it's like, right, I don't know if it's the same pull cube he was using, or was it, because we saw the bag earlier on, I just don't know if it's the same. It probably most likely was, so it's like, right, he still uses it from time to time. So, showing that it is still something, despite his complicated relationship with his father, he still utilizes stuff that his father had. And it's like, oh, you kept it all this time. And it's like, yeah, so you want to go, shoot some pool, and, talk about stuff. And he's like, I'd like that. So, making some progress. Really quickly, circling back to the Manny situation, I wasn't expecting that storyline to kind of pop up as quickly. I knew it wasn't over, especially the way the guy last episode was running his mouth off to Manny. So I could definitely see that being I'm sure Dante's going to be investigated, and he's probably going to want Robin's help, considering like, well, Jackson knows about that, and obviously Jackson and Delilah went on a date this episode, so I could definitely see like Dante needing her help investigating it, because it was like, right, that situation ended up being what it was. So I'm curious. I mean, it could be a thing of Dante's investigating it, and maybe Robin, like maybe even Robin ends up getting like Jackson becomes the client because of his connection to Delilah. Like Delilah's like, hey, maybe my mom can help you in some regard. Maybe maybe he has to deal. And might not just be Manny. Maybe even Jackson has to deal with the aftermath of like Manny getting involved last episode. So we'll see how that plays out. But speaking of Robin and Dante as well, she tried to reach out to Dante because Vi was like, like your life being what it is, like, maybe you need to have more of a social life. And it's like no time really when it comes to work and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that sexy detective, get him to handcuff you. It's like, yo, Vi talking like that is wild. But I mean, Vi also, like, obviously speaks truth, but also she always adds a little spice to some stuff. Because it's like, oh no, I don't want any cake. I'll save room for dessert. You're like, hey, yo. Because she was going on a date with Trish. But either way, Robin did try to, like, link up with Dante. Like, oh, I got this cake. I'm sitting here, like, at home watching shows. Like, do you want to, like, stop by? But obviously, like, the Manny thing. But I do love that apparently he was smiling because Manny was like, well, you over there grinning. And I was like, no, don't worry about it. It's like, yeah. So, because Robin was like, yeah, where we've been is kind of a little weird. I mean, especially lately. I mean, they've made up after episode 12. They made up, but it's still she's still fully unclear where they currently stand. So, I think you stand in a good spot. It's just like, just neither one of them's fully taken that leap yet, fully. So, but I think we can expect that to come up at some point in the future. So I'm excited to see where things kind of go on that front, on all fronts. I'm curious to see where all this ends up taking us. Going forward into the next episode, there is no episode this week. Obviously, I'm getting to this episode late, but there's no episode this week. There will be one next Sunday because I'm recording this pretty late. It's like Sunday morning at the time I'm recording this. It should go up in a next hour or two if nothing happens. But either way. So there's no episode this week, but there will be one next week. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.